Hello again, fellow audiophiles. I am Wave Theory, and this is the ZMF Atrium Closed, a $2,500 US closed-back dynamic driver headphone. This was a loan from a friend of the channel. It will be going back to that friend soon. On the way to me, it had a stop by ZMF's headquarters where it was fully evaluated and its health was signed off on before it got to me. And then ZMF also very graciously sent along a few extra goodies for me to review, both with the Atrium Closed here, such as a couple of their tuning meshes here that I checked out, and then also they sent me this thing, the Bokeh, their new headphone for review. That will be coming up soon. And this guy, their Homage amplifier, so that review will be coming up soon. But the focus of this one is, in fact, this Atrium Closed. So let's go ahead and do shameless self-promotion, and then we will talk about this one.
Hi, I'm Wave Theory's human companion, and he wants you to know that your support of this YouTube channel helps keep the reviews coming. If you enjoy Wave Theory's honest, thorough style, then make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and check out the links in the description below to sign up for the Patreon or send him a tip through PayPal. All right, enjoy the musings.
Let me start off by saying that I really liked this headphone. I found it to be a dynamic, fun, and engaging. It is not necessarily the most accurate sounding headphone out there, which we'll get to, but there is something about it that very consistently drew me in and had me tapping my foot and bobbing my head and generally just enjoying the music. All right, and so we will get to that, unpack why I say that here as the review progresses. I also want to say that that's kind of a big statement coming from me, because if you have followed my channel, you have found that my previous experiences with ZMF have been up and down. I liked the O-Tour and the Verite Open quite a bit. I thought that those were solid headphones and generally enjoyed them with a fairly wide range of music. There are some other of their models, the Icon and the Atrium Open version, that I thought sounded amazing and wonderful with a very narrow range of music genres. They were very much specialist. If you were within their specialties, they sounded really good. You got outside of those and the results were less good. And then there was the other one that I've heard from them was the Verite Closed, and the same friend who loaned me this sent me another set of Verite Closed here to compare these two. And this is the third set of Verite Closed that I have heard, and I just don't get it. I don't get that one. So that helps you couch, hopefully, why I say that I like this one, and this one is probably also the most complete sounding ZMF that I have heard to date. And so I wanted to kind of throw that framing out there here at the top of the video, just kind of help you get what's going on and why for me to say that I like this one is kind of a big deal. All right. Now, this is an olive wood here on this particular unit. Again, the starting price on the Atrium Closed here is $2,500 US, and then it goes up in price from there. The Atrium with other options, I say. You can get, there are other options for the chassis material. You can have an upgraded cable. You can get different pads. You can get different wood types. All of those kinds of things are going to start adding to the price, but $2,500 US is the starting stock price for this line here. The ZMF, or the Atrium Closed line, uses 300 ohm impedance biocellulose dynamic drivers with a rated sensitivity of about 96 decibels per milliwatt. So you are going to need an amplifier that can handle some voltage swings, but you don't need a ridiculous amount of power, because that 96 decibel per milliwatt sensitivity is not super high, but it's also not really low. There's a fair amount of efficiency here, so that again, as long as your amp can handle the 300 ohm voltage requirements that come with a 300 ohm driver, the sensitivity is such that you can probably push this thing reasonably well. And indeed, I found it to not be particularly amplifier picky, which we'll get to a little bit more here in a moment. But let's go ahead and turn our attention to the build. And that is an area where ZMF has always excelled, and their headphones have always been as much pieces of art as they are headphones. I mean, they have their own very distinctive look and style. Again, this one is olive wood, and the wood grain and all of that looks great. It is like meticulously crafted, and like all of the, just like the way the wood grain is angled, just the angle that they chose to put this on relative to the geometry of the headphone and all that is also just really well done. So it creates just a very just striking good looks and all of that. Again, they and the wood is well polished and all of that, so it feels nice to the touch and all that. And then just attention to detail on the build all around. It's just a well built headphone. And then again, these are all handcrafted, and because wood grains are what they are, each and every ZMF unit is unique. And so there's a very reasonable pride of ownership that comes along with that when you buy into ZMF. Okay, but anyway, so go ahead and ogle the wood there on the wood cups there just a little bit more. Okay, again, olive wood there. It is gorgeous. We have typical ZMF dual mini XLR input on the cups here. For this review, I mostly used my Forza Noir Hybrid HPC cable just because the cables that came with this, I didn't really like the length and all of that, and I like that Forza cable, the way it feels, and generally trust its sound, so I used that for this review here. All right, let's talk about some other options here, because like the stock pads that come with the Atrium Closed are the Caldera Thin Lambskin, I believe, and so I have a set of those here. But I ended up going with the combination of Caldera Suedes on here, and then also using the solid tuning mesh, which we'll talk more about what the tuning meshes do here in a little bit. Okay, but that was the combination that ended up working for me. You do need to be careful pad rolling and installing these tuning meshes. Some things can happen if you're not careful there. So what I will also do is link to Zach's instructional videos in the description below that show you the best practices for installing the meshes and also rolling the pads and all of that. So check those out there and help preserve the life of your headphone with that. Okay. And then the comfort, we'll go ahead and talk about that real quick. It's not a super heavy headphone. Forgive me, I'm going from memory on this, but I think it's around 475, 480 grams in weight. That may not be 100% accurate, but the weight is distributed pretty well. I did not notice any hot spotting on the top of my head or anything like that. The clamp force is a little bit on the stronger side compared to some other headphones that I've had in recently, but I don't find it overbearing or anything, and it keeps it on my head well, so like it doesn't slide around a whole lot when I move around. Now, even though it is a closed back, it is not particularly isolating. So like I can still pretty clearly hear my snapping fingers around here. I do hear some attenuation in my voice, but not as much as I do on other closed backs, such as like Focal's Radiance or the Meze Lyric 2 here. Those are or Dan Clark's E3. Like, so these are not quite isolating like that. I think this one, the closed back approach is more about just producing a kind of sound and not really as much geared towards giving you your own little place in the world, even if stuff is going on around you. Because again, these don't block out sound all that well, and nor do they really hold sound in. I don't want to call them semi-open, but they're not as isolating as a full-on closed back can be sometimes. Okay, so just keep that in mind if you are interested in these and like matching that to use cases. All right. But with that, I think we can go ahead and turn our attention to the test gear that I used to listen to these. So again, I used lossless or high-res FLAC files, either played locally or streamed via Qobuz, or local DSD files, all through Roon endpoints. It would have been Sonor Ultra Rendu streamers, or my Cord 2Go streamer, which would go directly into the Cord Hugo 2. Downstream from the Ultra Rendu streamer would have been Singer SU6 DDC. I also have in right now a Ferrum. It's either Wandla or Wandla. I know it's a W, but it's a Polish company, so the pronunciation there might be a little bit different. I have to look into that. Anyway, I have one of those Wandla plus Hypsos power supplies coming in there for a DAC, and then downstream from that I have a Ferrum Or amp in as well. Connected to the Singer DDC was my Berkeley Alpha Series 2 and a Musician Pegasus 2, which is in for review. Amps that I tried this on would include the HiFiMan Golden Wave Prelude, that ferrum ore that I mentioned, the Molnir 3, which I recently did a review of, the Vioelectric HPA V222, the Vioelectric HPA V281, and ZMF's own Homage amplifier, which I just showed you a moment ago. What did I learn through all of that? Well, like I said at the top of the video, I found the sound on this to be very dynamic and fun and engaging. And the tuning and the timbre on it are not, they're not poor. They are not necessarily accurate. Like they're not going to nail real world sounds with great consistency, but however it's done in here. Whatever Zach and his team have come up with in terms of doing the tuning and the timing on the attacks and the decays and all that, even though it may not be super technically accurate, it is still believable and engaging. Like it's not distracting to my ear. So I don't know exactly how he struck that balance, but he did, and it ends up being a very enjoyable listen. Now, the tuning on this in the stock configuration with no tuning meshes in place and the lambskin, I think it's lambskin, the Caldera thin pads here, the stock pads, was a little bit W-shaped, where there's kind of a mid-bass bump. Then the upper mids are a little bit forward to give some like vocal presence and that kind of thing there, and just have like vocals and like lead guitars and pianos and that kind of thing, like just really cut through the mix and be a little bit more forward. And then there was just a slight bit of extra presence in the in the consonant range, which could give it a little bit of sibilance. So to me, a slight W shape there. The mid forwardness on that stock configuration was a little bit distracting to me. It got a little bit shouty, honky, hollow sounding, a little bit too often to my ear. So that's when I started playing with pads and the tuning meshes in there. I ended up landing on the Caldera suede pads and then the solid Titan tuning mesh here. And for me, that smoothed out the tonal balance through the mid-range a little bit. Didn't completely solve the shout and the honk all the time, but made it much less of an issue and less severe when it happened. It also smoothed out the treble response a little bit and made the sibilance more uncommon, at least to my ears. And then just generally just gave it a more even tuning like throughout the entire frequency range. It was still slightly mid-forward, but then there was also a lot of mid-bass presence in there. So that's not a W shape. It's not a V shape. What is that? I don't know. Okay, but that was what my ears were telling me in terms of the perceived frequency response there. Now, on the technical side of this, the bass extension is good. It's not great. It's I would say it's strong for a dynamic driver headphone, but like it's not going to be quite as linear all the way down as some planar magnetics can do. At least open planars. Closed can get a little bit trickier there. Okay. And then like there's good treble extension too, but it's like with the suede pads in particular, there's the airiness is rolled off a little bit, but not so much that it ever sounds closed in or anything like that, at least to my ears. Okay. The thing that a little bit of warmth also came out to me with that combination. Like I appreciated the warmth. There's a little bit more presence in the warmth region. So like you get like a little bit forward mid-bass, you get some warmth, and then that slightly forward mid-range, and then a bit of a rolled off upper treble. So I don't know what you call that signature. Okay, but that's what this combination was giving me there. Now, the other standout feature that I mentioned here is the dynamics. There is a lot of physical impact and punch and a very lively, energetic kind of sound going on here. Kick drums really hit hard. If a bass guitar string, an electric bass guitar string is plucked hard, okay, given a really hard pluck, like there will be a fair amount of attack and impact, okay, to that sound, the leading edge of that sound here. I also give Zach a lot of credit because on all of his headphones, even if I didn't necessarily like the tuning and all of that, like I do recognize that he has a good ear for the attack and decay timing, and that is no exception here. I think he struck an excellent balance and a natural balance between like how aggressive sounds are on the attack and then like how long they linger on the decay side of it. That sounds pretty good to me, and so the pacing aspects of that in this headphone I think are strong there as well. Another thing that stood out to me here, and where I have had some issues outside of tuning with ZMF in the past, is like this one has pretty good resolution and detail retrieval. It is not elite in those traits, but it is at least solid there, to the point where like I can play the 1812 Overture on this, the finale of it. I like the Eric Kunzel and Cincinnati Pops version, where you have a full symphony orchestra, you've got a handbell choir, you have a vocal choir, and you have live cannon fire all going on at once. And this one had the resolution chops to not turn that into mush and to not be overwhelmed. Lots of previous ZMFs that I have tried here, you get a busy passage like that, and that's just an extreme example. It happens with other music too. They would just kind of get a little bit mushy and kind of freak out and not handle all of that very well. This one did a really respectable job there, holding all of that information together and presenting it in a coherent fashion. Have I heard better imaging and separation? Yes. Have I heard a little bit more detail retrieval in that passage on other headphones? Yes. Are they all $2,500? No, most of them are north of that. And if they're not, they're usually open back. This one does a really good job for being a closed back in terms of doing all of those things that I just described on that passage. But also those cannon fire, those cannon blasts in there, again, back to the dynamics here, just have just a really visceral impact to them, which was fun and engaging and, kind of aided in that you are there at that Pops Symphony presentation, concert, that's the word, okay, enjoying the show while you are there. So I think the resolution took a big step forward here, and that also helps with the sense of holography, the imaging and the separation. And here, again, not elite in terms of the world of headphones, but good and solid and reasonably holographic. Reasonably competitive at its price point, definitely strong for a closed back, and probably the best I have heard out of a ZMF headphone yet. Okay, so that also took a step forward there. So the knock on ZMFs, and my ears have borne this out too in the past, is that they often have like a really organic kind of sound to them, and like almost a romantic quality to their sound, but they're a little bit lacking in technicality or just technical proficiency. This one is a big step forward for the ZMF brand, at least to my ears, in terms of that technical proficiency, because again, it does bring a fair amount of resolution and spatial holography and all of that in, on top of having that kind of euphonic, like strangely organic, again, not necessarily accurate timbre, but just some kind of organicness works its way in here somehow. Okay, and it could be the attack and decay timing and all that, but anyway, it's in here. So you get that ZMF flavor, but again, like a nice, solid, noticeable improvement in technical proficiency, which to my ears helps just make it a more enjoyable and believable presentation. And I think it needs to be, because again, the tuning and the timbre is, again, not quite natural, but somehow ends up being like euphonic and engaging and organic, and just, draws me in pretty consistently. Okay, so I like this one. There is a lot to like about it, okay, in the sound and that sort of thing. Let's talk comparisons real quick. I mentioned the Verite Closed. To my ears, the Atrium Closed line has surpassed the Verite Closed line in terms of if you're looking for a $2,500 closed back headphone, particularly from ZMF, I would strongly recommend the Atrium line over the Verite line. I think the tuning here is a little bit more even and less peaky than what is commonly heard from the Verite Closed line. The resolution is also a big step forward over the Verite Closed line, and that to me helps with the overall sonic package and makes me more comfortable recommending it on like where it lands on the price performance scale and all of that. Okay, other closed backs, I just reviewed the Meze Liric 2, and that one is like an all-day listen music genre generalist kind of headphone as well, that has a more even tuning, but it is super, super source chain picky. I found the Atrium Closed to be more of a source chain generalist. It does change its behavior a little bit when you move from different DACs to different amps, but not a lot. So there's a wider range of source gear that you can use this with and get good results as compared to the Meze Liric 2. This one is also much more dynamic and like engaging in terms of the impact and the liveliness of the sound as compared to the Liric 2 here. So a lot more impact and just a higher fun factor and all that. So the Atrium Closed has some traits like that dynamic impact, for example, that is going to reach out and grab you and go, wow, this is fun, okay? Whereas the Liric 2 does not really have that trait, but I do find that the sound on the Atrium Closed to be a bit more fatiguing, and so 3-4 hours into a listening session, this one you're probably going to want to take a break from. I think a lot of people are going to want to take a break from, at least before they want to take a break from this one. So that's another consideration, but if you're like me, you rarely ever get 3 to 4 hour listening sessions, so that may not matter. Okay. Other closebacks out there right now, the Dan Clark Audio E3 is probably going to best this one in terms of resolution, but this one, again, way more dynamic impact, and this one it's a more fun and enjoyable overall sound to my ears, even though it is maybe not as technically proficient as the E3 is in terms of resolution and holography and soundstage, you know, like those kinds of things. I just still generally enjoyed this one more. This one connected me to the music more than the E3 did. Okay, so there are a few quick comparisons. Tuning meshes. Why do I keep saying messes? Meshes. It's meshes. Okay, anyway. As I mentioned, I ended up going with the solid mesh in there right over the driver and behind the ear pad. And again, see a link to where Zach shows you how to install that, or someone from ZMF shows you how to install that to do that safely. And this one, again, like this one, the combination of these and the suede pads really helps smooth out the mids. I did think the mids actually came a little bit forward with the stock pad here. And so I didn't really like that combination there. This is the tuning mesh that comes with the bokeh. And so I will put these when I do in the bokeh when I do that review and see what they do. I didn't really like what they did for the Atrium Closed. They pushed the mids a little too far forward as well and injected some sibilance in there that I didn't like. But so there are a few quick thoughts there. But again, for me, the combination of the solid mesh and the suede pads, good stuff. Good stuff. All right. Okay, and so I think we can wrap this up now. Again, I liked this headphone. I have had an up and down history with ZMF, but this one is solidly an up for me. Again, a dynamic, impactful, fun, lively, engaging kind of sound for me. The sound signature can be changed quite a bit with pad rolling and whether or not you put a tuning mesh in or that kind of thing. I landed on a sound signature that was a little bit warm, a little bit mid-bass, and like just slightly upper mid-range forward, and then a little bit rolled off in the top end, and that worked really well for me. Your mileage may vary, but I hesitate to say there is a singular frequency response kind of a sound signature to this one, just because pad rolling is kind of baked into the ZMF experience. Okay, but other than that, like, you get the beautiful wood cup that ZMF is known for. You get the uniqueness of it and the pride of ownership that comes with it. You get the master craftsmanship behind it and the excellent build quality and that sort of thing. So bravo to Zach and ZMF. I think this is a big step forward for your brand, and it has me excited about what you are going to come up with next. Okay, so thanks again to the friend of the channel who loaned this to me. You're going to be getting it back soon. Thank all of you for watching. Please remember to like this video. If you haven't yet, subscribe, leave a comment down below, check out my PayPal, check out my Patreon, and generally do those things you do to support YouTube channels. So thanks again for watching, and as always, enjoy the music.